All right, so hopefully everyone can see my title slide here.
Coming through just fine, Sharon.
Okay, excellent. So first off, I was just so thrilled and honored to kind of be included in the invitations to speak at during today and tomorrow's teach-in. And when I got back to Todd and said, you know, what would you like me to talk about? He said, whatever you want. And so I had a bit of a panic attack, thinking what would be interesting to talk about. And I made the decision to, instead of talking about work that I have done, to spend a little bit of time talking about work that I am kind of thinking about doing and planning to do. And hopefully that wasn't a mistake, but if it was, we're all in this together. So I'm going to talk a bit today about different kind of possibilities and perspectives on the benefits of volunteering and what they might be for people with aphasia. So in terms of disclaimers, as Todd had already mentioned, I am employed as the director of the Moss Rehab Aphasia Center, which is a collaborative effort between the Moss Rehab Hospital and the Moss Rehabilitation Research Institute. And so, speaking of New Jersey, anyone who's my age or older and from New Jersey might know from where this title originally comes. But you know, the more that I thought about it, the more that I felt like the life participation approach to aphasia and volunteering were really kind of a natural and you know, kind of a natural collaboration and kind of go perfectly together. And the reason for that is that I think that kind of both enterprises, for lack of a better word, are kind of this wonderful convergence between appreciating and acknowledging individuality and the individual goals and interests that each of us has, and the kind of unique strengths that people bring to bear to whatever they are working toward. And at the same time, kind of acknowledge and embrace this concept of community and being engaged and getting re-engaged in aspects of community that are important to you, and getting out there and advocating for what is important to you. So what does science tell us about the benefits of volunteering? We'll talk a little bit about that first. And in terms of the aphasia literature, it's pretty small at this time, but definitely growing. We're going to be hearing more about that, I think, later in the teach-in. And if I neglect any important sources, please share in the chat. And so a lot of the work that's been done is in a more general literature. And there seem to be kind of focuses on a couple of different components, quite a bit looking at differences in age cohorts, and you know, with a focus on as we age, what the potential benefits of volunteering are and how they might change. There seems to be a focus on what you might think of as formal volunteering. So kind of officially joining an organization or an effort as a volunteer. And then thinking a little bit about this notion of other versus self-oriented volunteering. So is the primary focus or goal of the volunteer experience kind of personal development, your own, you know, improving your skills in an area, learning new skills, etc., or is it more about, is it more focused outward? and doing something for others. And so if we kind of take a step back just for a moment from volunteering and think about just kind of in general, there's a fair bit of evidence that kind of a combination of social and physical and cognitive activity may actually have protective effects and may protect against kind of both physical and possibly cognitive decline as we age. And one of the mechanisms certainly might be that staying engaged helps to maintain and increase self-esteem, and also to maintain kind of a healthy mood. And then there's also a fair bit of evidence related to kind of how staying engaged can impact the brain. And it looks like there's a fair bit of evidence that staying engaged can help to reduce the toxic effects of stress, including the neurotoxic effects, for example, of the effects of cortisol on the brain. Staying engaged helps to support neuroplasticity, so the brain's ability to kind of continue to make new connections and form new patterns. And then there's also some evidence actually primarily looking at differences between kind of healthy agers and people with progressive dementing conditions, that staying active may help to maintain kind of a functional cognitive reserve, even in the context of the presence of some kind of brain pathology. And so if we kind of go into the rest of the talk with the understanding or the foundation that there may be these neuroprotective effects of staying active and engaged as we age, volunteering, I think, is kind of an activity that brings all of those components to bear into one kind of unifying activity. And it does that in the context of having this added value, excuse me, just knocked into my table there, the added value of altruism. So all of the potential benefits that go along with kind of the feeling that you're doing something for others. And related to that, but I don't necessarily think the same, is this idea of giving back. If you feel that you have gotten something that you feel like you're able to kind of return the favor, pay it forward, so to speak. And so now just to think a little bit about the possible benefits of volunteering that I think, you know, and any of these I think are potential for all of us, certainly including people with aphasia. There's a fair bit of evidence, probably the most evidence with respect to benefits lies in looking at the psychosocial benefits of volunteering. So the kind of the effect, one of the main effects is reducing symptoms of depression. And this seems to be particularly true in the context of people who engage in other-oriented volunteering, where the focus is not just on themselves, but also on others and helping others. There's evidence that people who volunteer see increases in happiness and positive affect, as well as just an overall kind of increase in their experience or self-report of life satisfaction or quality of life. Another big one that really resonates with me, and I think resonates, may resonate with a lot of what we've talked about so far today, or what has been talked about, is kind of the potential benefit to increases in feelings of self-efficacy or mastery. So increasing confidence and feeling as though you are, you know, either learning something new and doing it well, or, maybe getting back into doing something that is very important. And also this notion of resilience. Another thing that I think is very important is that one of the benefits of volunteering that's often described is the creation of a social support network, particularly in the context of the idea that when we become volunteers, we're kind of joining a group of like-minded individuals. And so it's not just an opportunity to be doing something that's important to you. It's also an opportunity to meet people that you have things in common with, and form friendships. Another set of benefits that people often talk about in the context of volunteering are the potential physical benefits. So especially in volunteering where there's more physical activity, but even not necessarily requiring a lot of physical activity, we see reports of reduction in hypertension or high blood pressure. There's a fair bit of work that suggests that there may be some benefits for individuals as we age relative to kind of being able to maintain functional independence, and stay independent for as long as possible with activities of daily living, as well as more specific activities. And then something that I thought was extremely compelling, there actually is some evidence related to the possible benefit with respect to mortality rates. And I thought that this quote was worth writing and reading in full. It is no longer a question of whether volunteering is predictive of reduced mortality risk. Rather, our results suggest that the volunteering mortality association is reliable and that the magnitude of the relationship is sizable. So that's quite strong language, exciting, and hopefully we'll continue to find that is true. And then we get to cognitive benefits, and I've kind of put this in a different color, slightly darker color, because this, I think, is possibly one of the newer areas of research with respect to volunteering, and certainly an area that has the least in terms of evidence to date. But I also think that there's a lot of potential here. So in terms of cognitive benefits, there are starting to be some pieces of evidence that one of the benefits that people who volunteer experience are those associated with new learning. And there are all sorts of cognitive processes that underlay learning, with respect to attention, to memory, both working memory and kind of long-term memory, with respect to being able to set goals and maintain the motivation to proceed toward those goals. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity here for work. And then also some of the behavioral work that's been done shows that there might be some executive function benefit. And so again, when we talk about executive function, we're talking about all those things that I just mentioned that go into learning. So attending, memory, being able to hold on to information until you have learned it, goal setting, etc. And some of the specific skills or tasks that people seem to get better at over the course of a period of volunteering are things like that involve mental flexibility. So being able to switch between tasks or among tasks, and to do things that require what we think of as cognitive control. Excuse that little background sound if you heard it. And those data actually kind of correspond with some other data that's out there in the volunteering literature that actually show changes in activation specific to the frontal lobe over the course of a period of volunteering, which is pretty interesting, but again, very much, I think, in its infancy. And so another thing to think about, and all of these things are still absolutely kind of open empirical questions, is all volunteering created equal? And are there going to be different effects and different benefits based on any number of different factors associated with volunteering? So the type of volunteering, again, getting back to that notion, for example, of kind of self-oriented versus other-oriented. The complexity of the activities that are required in the volunteering. The world is kind of your oyster when it comes to volunteering. So it might be, something as, you might be doing data entry, you might be doing fundraising, you might be, working, out in the community with strangers that you've never met and having to talk to them and train them. So that can also have an impact potentially on the kinds of benefits that are derived. The frequency of volunteering, is, what is enough, and also what is too much? Is there kind of a point of diminishing returns? Anyone who has been a long-term volunteer knows that there are challenges, and I'll talk a little bit about those later. And then, certainly there are going to be individual differences. Everyone brings something unique to the table in terms of their volunteering, and will probably also take something unique away from the table of the volunteering experience. So I think, I'm very fortunate, again, to work where I work and to be a part of the Research Institute, and I've learned a lot about kind of active ingredients in treatment and in neuro rehab. And I think this is another area where we're still a long way from kind of knowing what the right fit is, and there probably is no one right fit for everyone. We all have to kind of find our own best fit. And so I thought I would be remiss in talking about volunteering if I didn't at least talk a little bit about what volunteer opportunities might look like. Though again, the world is absolutely your oyster in this context. But I have seen a lot in our own membership in the Aphasia Center of kind of things that people with aphasia are doing with respect to aphasia-related volunteering. And many of these things are things that they, our members have sought out on their own. So visiting, as I mentioned earlier, we are affiliated with a hospital, with a rehab hospital, and we have members who are formal volunteers who visit the stroke unit to support people who have a new diagnosis of aphasia, to talk to them about their own experiences, show them things that have been helpful to them. We have peer volunteers in our Aphasia Center, and I know that we're not the only one. So we're people with aphasia volunteer to work with other people with aphasia, doing whatever is needed and helpful. Also, kind of what you might think of as the training and educating pieces. And these, again, are just some examples. We are in a place where we're surrounded by a number of universities, and our members volunteer to take part in kind of aphasia training clinics, in assessment and treatment demos. We have members who visit classes, bachelor's and master's degrees classes in communication disorders to talk about their experiences. And then kind of broader community advocacy and outreach events. We have members who go to senior fairs, other kinds of community gatherings, and are working to help educate the public about aphasia, and including actually attending government advocacy events that are put together by our local and state representatives, to help educate not only the community, but also the people who are representing us, and who are representing the people in the community with aphasia. And then research participation. I'm always happy to hear when people with aphasia think of research participation as something that is an enjoyed volunteer opportunity. And I think we've also heard a lot today about how important it is to work with people with aphasia, not only as participants in research, but also as collaborators in designing and implementing research. And then, of course, there are, in terms of general volunteering, and in terms of maybe volunteering in the community that for causes or initiatives or activities that aren't necessarily directed toward aphasia specifically, really anything is possible. I've kind of gone back and forth as I was creating the slides. Should I list 10 or 20 or 50 different types of activities or volunteer opportunities? And I kind of decided no, because I didn't, the examples shouldn't be limited by my imagination. Everyone has their own unique gifts to bring, and it's just finding what's most important to you. And that might be getting involved in or helping people to be involved, supporting people in being involved in getting re-engaged in things that they were interested in before they developed aphasia. And equally exciting are opportunities to get involved in things that allow you to explore maybe unexplored parts of your personality or new skills. And I think part of the work that clinicians and other stakeholders in the life participation approach to aphasia, our responsibility, or one of our responsibilities, is again supporting people in having those kind of conversations about what might be important to them, helping to support them however we can in developing the skill sets that they might need, and then also helping to reduce any barriers that exist either in the community or within the individual or within the group, to help them get back into the community in whatever way they would like. And I think when we think about volunteer opportunities that might not necessarily be specifically directed towards aphasia-related content, you know, there's the added benefit of bringing potentially to a new facet of the community awareness of aphasia and what aphasia is and what it means to live with aphasia. And when the quarantine first happened, you know, I think we all moved very quickly to try to think about ways that we could stay connected virtually. And one of the things that I discovered that I wasn't really aware of before is that there are actually a lot of different kinds of volunteer opportunities that are available that you can do, that a person can do right from home. You know, we're kind of happily moving slowly back out into the world, but it's good to know that there are also things that we can do from the comfort of our own homes. And I was really excited to see some of those, and so I just have the link for anyone who's available or who wants to go to the link, and I certainly can answer any questions at the end. And so I wanted to finish with a little bit about what volunteers tell us about volunteering. And I thought I should probably put my money where my mouth is and talk a little bit about my own experience with volunteering. I've been a volunteer with animals who are living in shelters since probably 2009. And one of the kind of big things that I've learned in terms of benefits is that, you know, giving back doesn't mean that you don't get anything. I have had the joy of meeting and working with hundreds of dogs. And some of them are part of my family. Some of them are part of my extended family. And I've learned so much from working with the animals and working with the other humans who work with the animals. So I absolutely feel like I have gotten as much as I've given. I definitely have experienced what the research says, you know, is true for many people who volunteer, that, you know, you do really find a social network and, you know, kind of this group identity, you know, through these kind of shared interests and shared experiences. And you really do support each other and develop friendships that go beyond the particular context of the volunteering. And so the other thing that I thought would be, you know, kind of important to mention is that moving into volunteering, you know, if you do, when you do, it's not just about benefits. There are also a lot of challenges, and those challenges are going to be different for each individual, for each organization with which you volunteer. You know, there might be days of frustration with yourself, with the organization you're volunteering with. There might be days of sadness, anger. We definitely experience all of those in the world of volunteering with shelter-dwelling animals. And I think that the way that that you kind of move through that is, again, building up that resilience that we talked about earlier, and then also having that social network of other volunteers who are experiencing the same things or similar things that you are. And so we're going to end on some words from some people with aphasia that I know who were kind enough to share their experiences and perceptions of volunteering with me and with us. And these are their own words, except in a couple of cases where I've just taken out information that might be kind of identifying. So we'll first a quote from a friend who was kind enough to be an advocacy event volunteer at a recent governmental statewide advocacy and education event. And so he shared that he said, "I enjoyed the day and had a good conversation. I tried to talk to people with aphasia and people without aphasia. I would volunteer more if I could. It is like research. I hope it would help people while I work on my speech." That's a double win. And as soon as I got this in the email, I wrote right back and thanked him so much and said how much I appreciated that double win comment, because I think that is one of the amazing things about volunteering. It is very much a win-win proposition. And then our last quote comes from another friend who is a friend with aphasia who is a long-term volunteer and has been working with her organization for a while now. "Volunteering is a big part of my healing. It has improved my speech, my connections to people, my confidence, my mind, and of course, my soul. After the hospital and after early retirement from my job, I watched a lot of television. I was in a funk, feeling a little depressed and lost. I saw a show, and this is where I interjected, about humane law enforcement in my city. Seeing the work that the shelter does every day fueled my interest in helping animals. I became a volunteer 3 years ago and have been helping shelter animals since then. The animals don't care if you stumble over your words or are a little slow. They accept you as you are. I have value. I can contribute. I can give back for all of the people who have helped me. You have value. You can contribute. You can give back for all of the people who have helped you. Find yourself a purpose that resonates with you. Have someone or something and give back. Help someone or something and give back. It will heal you in so many ways." And that's about it for me. Thank you so much for listening. One of the benefits of being later in the day is that I was able to prepare my nugget in anticipation of Todd's question. And so I would say that my nugget is, hold on with both hands to what is important to you and go for it. Don't let anything stand in your way if it's something that you want.
Bonus points for having a slide that speaks to it too. That's just nice. Very nice.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Sharon. We're gonna make a quick transition, as much as I'd love to stay with you, because I got to buy a couple minutes around 9:20 tonight to transition.
Of course. Thank you. And hi, Jamie.
Hey, Sharon.